Hi, my name is Matthew Belisario. Welcome to another edition of the Belisario Sonic YouTube channel. Today, I wanted to start a series called Analog versus Digital. And this topic is an interesting one, and there's a lot of opinions out there online of people talking about what's better, analog or digital. And you have these camps of people that's like analog vinyl records are the best, nothing sounds better. Then you have other people, no, the digital's better. Oh no, the vinyl records suck because if they're not in perfect shape they don't sound good. Then you have the other camp, that want to listen to everything on a portable player, which a lot of young people now do. So it's a pretty complex question. So I wanted to keep the videos, to where you could watch 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll do another segment because it gets quite complex on whether one is better than the other. And really it all comes down to how it was recorded, how it was mixed down, how it was mastered. And each recording itself is unique because there are some analog recordings that have been remixed from the masters and put on like a 5.1 surround or on a high quality stereo mix. And I must say, it sounds better than the original vinyl record. Okay, and that'll be heresy to some people. And I'm a big vinyl guy, as you can see. I got a lot of vinyl. I love vinyl records, and I love the way they sound. There are certain characteristics of a vinyl record that um, haven't until more recent years been more popular to be able to get on a digital format with the higher bit rates, higher resolution, with it like you have on a DVD or a Blu-ray. Okay, and so even on a stereo mix, if you get a good stereo mix on the uh, high quality bit rates, such as on a DVD or Blu-ray, it gets really sounds very close to analog. It's really close. It sounds very good. And again, the formats themselves are another thing to talk about. The convenience of the digital versus the vinyl record that you have to play on a record player, right? So better, that's kind of it depends on what you're looking at, is whether one is better than the other. So I think better is not really a good term to use. Vinyl, analog versus digital. Let's just step into it and start talking about it a little bit. And this particular video, I'm just gonna give a brief introduction, and I'm gonna use one example of a record that I've got the CD of, which is Heart album, recorded in 1985. This is the CD. I believe it's even original pressing. It's one of the older pressings. But this was their 1985 hit album. A lot of great songs on it. Good rock album. And then I've got an original vinyl record pressing. And then I've got a new reissue pressing. And I've sat down and listened to these and compared them, and not just with myself, with even a friend of mine, to have another set of ears to listen. And what we both determined was all three of these sound different. Now, as to which one sounds better, that's a point of debate, because I think you didn't really agree that one sounded necessarily better than the other. I think we both did prefer the vinyl sound over the digital on this particular record. Now, what's interesting is I don't even see that that the new reissue here. It doesn't say anywhere that it's been remixed that I know of. Okay, so inside the sleeve notes, every place that I've looked, it does not say this was remixed. Um, but when we listened to them, we both agreed that the vocals sounded different on both of them. The guitar sounded different. The drums sounded they sounded different enough to where we were both like, yeah, there's a significant difference between these two vinyl pressings. And so the original and then the reissue, and we both thought that the original sounded a little bit of a better sound, a better mix than this one. And so I really like to know what the difference is between these two. I don't know if anybody out there might know, but this is just a perfect example of when you say which one's better. Well, I've got two different records here. They both sound different. And so, and then we have the CD, which sounds even different, right? The what I could say is on the vinyl records, on this particular pressing, the drums breathe more, and what I always find on a vinyl record is that especially when the drums are recorded analog, the drums have a deeper resonant sound on a vinyl record usually than what you'll hear on a 16-bit CD. It sounds more thuddy to me, more compressed, the drums on a CD. That's just my personal opinion, okay? Um, Now, if you're ever wondering on how to figure out how the album was recorded, on a CD, on the LPs, even the reissue, it doesn't have this information. But if you look in somewhere on the CD itself or on the corner here, if you see up there in the corner, it says ADD. I don't know if you can really read that. Um, it says ADD. So if you look right up here on the right side where my finger is, ADD. Okay, that's called the sparse code. That means it was recorded analog. That's the first step. It was mixed down digitally and then it was mastered digitally. So you have here an analog recording that was recorded on analog tape. So I would assume that when they put it on the vinyl originally, I would assume that it was probably analog to analog to analog at that point. I don't know that for sure because some of the records in the 80s were actually digital masters and digital mixes that went to the vinyl record, okay? So, and it doesn't say that on these records on what it is. So, if anybody out there has that information, I can't find it. But I will say all three of these sound different. So, just giving you already an example of there is no standard answer on what sounds better when it comes to vinyl record or a CD or when it comes to DVD audio where you jump up from a 16-bit to say 24-bit. Um, and so it varies from record to record, okay? Um, so this was just one example I wanted to use was this Heart record to show you that I've got three different sounds with two different vinyl records and the CD. And somebody might argue that they like the CD sound better because the drums sound more modern on there. They're more compressed sounding, but it kind of gives a more of a modern. It sounds it gives more of a modern sound that kids are into nowadays, which is that bass, that thumping bass sound. You get more of that to me on the CD, whereas on the vinyl record it resonates more and sounds wider and breathes more. And so that would be uh, my initial explanation of these three different mixes on how different they sound. As far as the two vinyl records sound, they sound like a different mix to me, and they did to my friend as well. And we did some research and couldn't figure out what the difference was, but there's certainly an audible difference without a question. Um, and we listened to them all back to back. Listen to a song, boom, boom, boom. Listen to another song, boom, boom, boom. Listen to a couple more, and then we listened to them all back to back. So now talking about the quality or the formats. Okay, if you have a vinyl records, if you collect vinyl, then you obviously know that if you don't have a clean pressing, it doesn't sound that great, right? You get the crackle. If you don't get the static, get rid of the static on the record. You get surface noise. So vinyl is a more difficult medium to listen to music on. That's a given. If you don't get that, that's just basics, objective facts here. A vinyl is just a harder upkeep. You have to make sure the record's clean. You don't get dust on it. Everything affects the sound on the surface because you have a needle that's dropping on the record and it's actually vibrating with what's cut into the record. Now, the nice thing about that is if it was recorded analog and they put it down from analog to analog and mix and mastered it and it came out and got put on the record, you're hearing as close as what you can as to how it was originally recorded. So you actually hear the sine waves with the needle vibrating. So you get a truer sound most of the time if it was recorded like that because it's straight over analog all the way down the line. And so you really get a different sound. I will say, listening to like Led Zeppelin, You listen to those original pressings, and then you hear the remixed pressings that Jimmy Page did with the Zeppelin records. Another thing, well, a mix can change. It changes everything. But you still get the real if they're coming from the analog tapes and cut directly down to mix and mastered and right to the analog, you get a different sound. And to me, it just breathes more. It just resonates differently when you're listening to it, especially when you're listening to it on a real system with nice speakers and a decent amplifier and preamp, and you really get a different sound than what you would get on a CD. And so if somebody had never heard Zeppelin on the vinyl and they heard the remixed CD, which is done very well, they might not really get why you would listen to it on a record, on a vinyl record, right? For those of us that listen to it on vinyl from the beginning, you can hear the difference on the CD. And then, but when it comes to the remixes, you have to start over again, right? You can't go on the old original pressings if you bought the remixes, and then I'm going to listen to that record and I'm going to compare it to the CD again. So there's a lot of different things to compare here. Now, when it comes to the medium of digital, there's a lot of different things to look at. What format of digital are you talking about? You talking about an MP3, a AAC? You talking about a lossless file like a FLAC file, a WAV file? It depends on what you're listening to and how it's compressed and what kind of codec it's using. All that matters. Like an MP3, most of the time it just sounds like garbage. The codec sucks, and it just doesn't sound very good. A step up a little bit on the AACs. They sound a little bit better. Then you go to a WAV file, you're basically getting a CD quality sound, 16-bit. You're going to get the sound of a CD from a WAV file, but it takes up more file space, right? So people want to compress it down. The FLAC file, you're able to compress it down and have lossless, where it takes up about half the space, but you still get the same sound quality. And you can do up to 32-bit on a FLAC file. So you can do a 24-bit download or whatever you want, and you'll have very high quality, or even a 16-bit would be comparable to a CD. Now, the problem I always had with the CDs is it just never quite sounded as good as a vinyl record when you have a good copy of a vinyl record. The CD always just sounded a little thuddy and a little stale to me. And it doesn't mean that all CDs are bad. It just, to me, they just sounded a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe a little sharp or a little harsh. Maybe is the best way I can explain it. It didn't have this as resonant of a sound. It kind of sounded more harsh, more compressed, I guess is the word. Now, when you get up to the DVDs and they're using 24-bit, and they're sounding really good. And in fact, I don't understand, and I do understand to a certain extent why everything has gone streaming and why you can download the files. I'm still old school. When I buy something, I want a physical copy of it, and I want to be able to have that physical copy. I don't want it in the cloud. I don't want it on a hard drive, because guess what? The stuff can disappear. I don't care what anybody says, what kind of redundancy you have. That stuff is subject to disappear. If I've got a hard copy, a DVD, or a CD or a vinyl record, those are hard copies. I can keep those anywhere. I don't have to worry about losing them. So that's just me. I'd never buy stuff that's just downloadable and it's on a hard drive or in the cloud. I just don't do that. So one thing I will do is I bought a Sony Walkman, a new version, which will play FLAC files. So I can go on there, I can rip CDs down, or I can, if I want to have where I bought something and it has a high quality download, 24-bit or whatever, or 16-bit, I can just download that onto that Sony Walkman, and it will save it it'll save it lossless as a FLAC file, which is nice because I can take that in my car, I can plug it in, and I can actually have decent sounding where I can put my headphones on and listen to it, and it's good quality. I don't have to worry about the crappy MP3 or AAC files. So those are just some things to think about when you're talking about analog and digital. It's not clear cut as vinyl's better or the digital's better. There's a lot of different things to look at here. It's not quite that just simple black and white. Now, when it comes to newer recordings, most of those are done digitally, right? So I find that when these digital these newer records are done, they're recorded digitally. Well, when I put on the 5.1 with the 24-bit mix stereo, it sounds fantastic. Very, very good. And if I have some that I bought the vinyl record on and I put it on, and I heard a difference in just because of the two systems I play it on, and they sound a little bit different. But I wouldn't say either one sounds better than the other. Just personal opinion on some of these that I have both on. Now, someone might ask, well, if it's recorded digitally, why buy the vinyl? Well, good question. A lot of it's for collectability or just the of having the big artwork and opening it up and having that format is part of it. Now, there are some people that remix for vinyl, some bands. So you'll have one mix for a CD mix, and you'll have another mix for a vinyl mix, and they will sound different. Um, One of them that comes off the top of my head was a record done by Government Mule. I think it's the second album they did, Dose. I'm assuming it was done as a digital recording, given when it was recorded. And I remember having the CD and listened to that for so long. And then I ordered their limited edition vinyl pressing. And when I put it on my big system, I was like, wow, this sounds different. The guitars stick out different. It sounded radically different, and I enjoyed it more. And that was a digital recording, and I liked the mix on the vinyl record better than I liked what was on the CD. So, again, just another example of is one better than the other? It just depends. And it depends on what you like, what sound you like. And it depends on what you're doing with it. I can't take a vinyl record on in my car, right? So I am a person that firmly believes in both formats of vinyl record, analog, or digital. And I like them both, and I think they both are great mediums to listen on, depending on where you're at or what you're doing. But I do think that the CD should go. I think the CD has just been outdated for years, and I'm really saddened by the fact that all of the music didn't move to DVD and go all high quality, 24-bit, all the way down the line, where every single recording that's come out, everything that's come out over the last 20 years should have been on a DVD with the high quality instead of this crappy. I'm sorry, I call it crappy, but I think it's just behind the times. The 16-bit CD quality is just not as great as it is as the DVD sound, and there's no reason. It doesn't cost any more money to print a DVD now than it does a CD. So why not just ditch the CD format altogether, and let's print them all on DVDs and give us all high quality digital recordings? It would completely change everything, and it might even revitalize the selling the DVD versus the CD. Because nowadays you get, with these box sets, you'll get the CD version sometimes, and you'll get the DVD pressing with 5.1 and the high quality stereo. Well, I don't need the CD. And they should be putting DVD players in all the cars. That's another thing. You don't have any players in the cars half the time nowadays. They're just putting in, you got to download everything onto it. And I just can't stand that. I like having a CD player or DVD player in my car so that I can stick it in there and rip it down onto there at full quality. That's what I want. But if I'm just cruising around, I want to throw a CD or DVD in there, I should be able to do that. So I think it's time for the audio standard to change, or even to Blu-ray. I mean, to me, I don't even think it costs that much more money to make a Blu-ray nowadays. So to me, it's almost like, look, let's just ditch this old format and make everything backwards compatible so that I can play whatever I want going back, right? And just start making Blu-ray players or 4K players, whatever you're going to do, the Blu-ray. And let's just get all high quality audio and start putting everything out that way. And I think that would revitalize selling physical copies versus downloading. I really do, because you won't be able to get that good quality streaming. They're not going to give you that high quality most of the time unless you're paying for that service to get that high quality. So those are just some of my thoughts on analog versus digital. So this is part one. I'll get into a little bit more detail on the next video, talking specifically about file formats, compression, codecs, that kind of stuff. It'll be a little bit more of a technical video. This was kind of more of an overview of what I wanted to give, and I didn't want it to be too long of a video. So We'll see you next time on part 2 of Analog versus Digital.